All right, how's that?
A lot better. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're rolling.
Be recorded.
Yeah, it's recording.
Oh, okay. All right. Now I am too. Are you ready for the fire and fury of nuclear disaster that's going to be coming our way here before too long?
I haven't even heard about it.
Oh, that's the latest Trumpism. Apparently, when I checked the news this afternoon in response to North Korea.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you were in intelligence for a few years. How seriously should people be taking this North Korea thing?
I don't know. It's really hard to tell with what's on the media whether to take it seriously or not, right? The United States military does use the media to feed stories that are bunk stories, and certainly to promote American propaganda.
Say it ain't so, right? Say it ain't so.
One of the things that really turned me off when I was in intelligence school, that was the time when Desert Storm was going on, and one of my instructors was an Arabic linguist who had done some work in the Middle East, and he told us one story in particular that was top secret that I can't repeat here, but it really opened my eyes, because I knew in that story there's a side of what actually happens, the event, and then there's what the media portrays happened, and they're very, very different, because the U.S. military used the media in that case, and they used it to do some serious hardcore bullying of another country that involved the loss of lives. And it was just really ugly. And I remembered seeing the news about what had happened, like what the media portrayed, and it's completely bogus. I mean,
Saddam Hussein was a waiter at a nightclub before he was put in Iraq, right? He was a CIA plan. Is that what you're telling us?
I do know a special forces guy, a guy in Fifth Special Forces who went to Afghanistan, who actually sent photographs while he was there in the late 1980s, training the Taliban, and equipping them. Yeah, he was a demolitions expert, and he was training them in munitions and such. So it was like, all of that. Like I did learn in intelligence school that enough of that goes on that I wasn't happy pursuing that anymore. The idea that I really wanted to be in special forces because their motto is to free the oppressed, and they're portrayed as real heroes that go around the world and go and train and equip tribal people, really, to overthrow dictatorial governments. But I didn't realize until I was in intelligence school that that is also a setup for just creating chaos so that the United States can deploy on that country, right? I bought the line, and when I started working the reality, I realized I'd been duped. So.
Yeah. I still think Dennis Rodman carried a secret packet of information to Kim Jong-un from Donald Trump, saying, "Hey, let's see if we can ramp all this up a little bit."
Yeah.
I mean, the guy grew up in Switzerland, right? So, he knows a little bit about the way the media works and that sort of thing. So,
right.
Well, he didn't grow up in Switzerland, but he went to school in Switzerland. So,
Dennis Rodman?
No.
It's like Dennis Rodman went to school in Switzerland?
Maybe that's Dennis Rodman went to school in Switzerland. I don't know. I still, even if it goes down, I mean, it's going to put Desert Storm to shame. I think it's going to be mainly an aerial / bombardment from the sea.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Trump has put the military commanders fully in charge, is my understanding. Of the military at least, right? He's kind of backed off and said, why don't you guys tell us what the shots are going to be? You're the experts in this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if something were to happen with Korea, I think it would be just like kind of what Trump said. When the U.S. wants to rain fire on somebody, they can do it.
Oh yeah. There's no doubt. I mean, short of going nuclear, though, it would have to be a very coordinated attack, because they'd have to take out the artillery batteries along the north-south border, sort of where Seoul is, and they'd probably have, and then simultaneously take out the launch sites for a lot of these, for where the ICBMs are.
Yeah.
You have to do it all at once, so that's pretty massive bombardment of probably like Tomahawks and aircraft as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and who's to say that Trump wouldn't allow the military to go nuclear?
Well, and I was actually listening to a former general talk that they never take that off the table.
Right.
And in this particular case, I mean, if they actually, so they miniaturize, apparently it's been revealed that they can miniaturize the warheads now. If they can actually, if they can get it, the biggest thing now apparently is re-entry of the ICBM from space without damaging the warhead. And if they can do that, I mean, the nuclear option is not off the table for a preemptive strike, apparently. So.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's no, like, the U.S. hasn't played that hand for a long time now.
No, that's true.
And with a guy like Trump, I don't know exactly how his mind works or anything, but he's the kind of guy, like, if anybody would decide, well, might be a good idea to use some nukes and put the fear back in the world. I could see Trump doing that, right?
Yeah.
So
it's
I don't
the
know.
Chinese that are really freaking out a little bit, however quiet or seemingly calm as they are, because of course they're right on the border, right? So anything that happens is going to flow right over. So.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Could be wild. But we're safe here. We're safe. The mountains have got our back, and the moose, they will deflect anything with their horns. So
yeah, nobody cares about us. We're just the wimpy guy in the corner, just staying out of the way.
Wonder if Kim Jong-un likes maple syrup. Maybe we should send him over. That's not on the sanctions list. Oh dear, crazy world.
It is.
Are you looking forward to going to see Joe Rogan in a month?
Yeah, it's coming right up, isn't it?
It is. I've got the tickets right here, man.
What's the date? September.
It is the 8th.
September 8th. Wow, exactly a month.
Yeah.
That's going to be wild, because we'll have just learned, what happens with McGregor and Mayweather and all that, right?
Yeah, that's true. What's the date of that? 26th?
Yeah, it's a 20-something.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Apparently he's not calling that one.
24th, maybe? Yeah, I don't know. I didn't hear that he was going to call it, no.
I guess he was pre-booked to do some shows in Washington, D.C. when the news came out that it was going to be happening. So.
Gee, that's a tough call.
He's going with the audience. He's going with the show. So
I guess he has to, ethically, he has to make that choice, right? People bought tickets to his show, and he's got to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, that's part of the reason why he's kind UFC in Edmonton.
Oh yeah.
Rogers the day after the show. At the Jubilee. So that's part of the reason why it's here, I think, is that he's probably calling that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah.
So do you have a prediction?
With the McGregor Mayweather?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's really hard. Like in my heart, I want McGregor to win because it is, no matter what anybody says, yeah, it's a boxing match, but no, it's MMA versus boxing is what it is, right?
Well, but is he actually, so I thought there was some sort of rule or something that they came up with that he was only going to box.
Yeah, he's gonna box.
Yeah.
It's a boxing match, but symbolically, it's MMA versus boxing, right?
Yeah, but is it though? I mean, I guess that's what he does, but I mean,
yeah.
I suppose. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's what political scientists always say, right? What's going to happen in the election? Well, depends.
It is what it is though, because whoever wins, the other side is going to be hazed forever. That they lost the wager. We tested it. Boxing is better, So in my heart, I really want McGregor to win because that would just like undo all the glue of boxing completely,
It's true.
Not that I don't think boxing should be there, but I think boxing should be pretty humble to MMA at this point.
Well, and if you look at it full scope, right? I mean, assuming there were no rules, I mean, that would be a real test for me.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
If there was no
Zero rules. Yeah.
Then that's the real test of this.
Right.
I don't know. I hear a lot of skepticism from UFC fans up here about the idea of restricting McGregor to the boxing.
Well, yeah. What
that actually shows.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Once that's what it's going to be. He's restricted to the boxing, but his movement doesn't have to be boxer movement.
That's true. Yeah, the movements. Yeah.
And there's things to do with the fists that he could get away with in boxing that they've talked about, things like Superman punches and stuff that Mayweather's not hasn't dealt with really in a fight before.
Right.
There's things like that, but I think the movement, if anything, and the reality is, like, I don't know, if I had like, I don't even want to say if I had money to put on it, I'd put it on Mayweather because I wouldn't. I'd put it on Conor because I want him to win so bad. Because that's the kind of betting guy I am. Doesn't matter if I actually think it's gonna for sure win or not. I'm kind of the guy that has to go with the team. So I'm Team MMA. I'm Team MMA, even though when I watch Mayweather, I realized that this guy's been at it it's been his whole life. He's like third generation boxer.
Yeah.
And so this is his everything, right? And he's a master, and nobody's beat him. And and if you watch him in his fights and stuff, I mean, like it's hard to imagine that Conor, who's really very young in fighting compared to Mayweather, like really young in fighing, is going to overcome that skill. Conor McGregor?
Yeah.
I think he's like 25, 26.
Oh, is he? Is he that young?
Yeah, he's still pretty young.
Here, let me see. Let's see, Conor McGregor.
And he's only been in MMA he's only been building himself for like 4 years, right?
Yeah, he's 29.
29, okay.
Yeah.
So, but he's built himself to where he is in 4 years.
Yeah.
like, how much skill can you get in 4 years? You know, like, I don't know. There's people who are very talented at acquiring skill, and there's other people who are relying on like, maybe they're a little bit faster, or maybe they got some power in one of their strikes or something. They're relying on these tricks that are working every time so far. But he hasn't fought 49 fights. Like, I can't imagine Conor McGregor winning 49 fights. He's already lost a couple of times, right? So, I don't know. Like, on that side, and given that it's the boxing ring and everything, it's hard to imagine that Mayweather is going to lose. But I'd like to imagine that. I would love to see the world turn upside down if Mayweather got knocked out by Conor McGregor. How crazy that would be. It would be like, I can't imagine where they're going to come up with the next act that's going to be anything like that.
Well, I have a guaranteed prediction for you in this run. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
No one will win against this prediction. Are you ready?
Sure.
There's a shit ton of money going into this. There's a shit ton of money to be made. That's my prediction for this.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
There's like t-shirts and everything out for it right now. I think I've seen
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of t-shirts, how's you just got some t-shirts for your
I do. I got some Rattlesnakes of Lethbridge t-shirts. I've got one here. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think this is a child size one. This one, medium child's t-shirt. I don't know if you could be able to even make that out.
A little bit, yeah. Oh yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, how many you sold?
I've sold a few. Yeah, I've sold, I don't know, maybe a dozen or something.
Okay.
Not too many, but a few.
Yeah.
A few, yeah.
I was curious who you went to. Oh, we can talk about that later. But yeah, I was curious who you went to for it. So.
Oh, I just made it myself.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay. like an iron-on transfer thing? Or?
Silk screen.
Okay.
Yeah. The artist who drew the logo that I'm using, she drew it for me last year, and I was expecting to have somebody do it up for me last year.
Yeah.
And I was just too broke all year to spend whatever, $300 or whatever to make it worth my while printing up shirts, right? And so I didn't get it done. And then this summer, the same artist came to me, and she said, I got a present, and she gave me a whole silk screening like kit, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah, like a silk screening machine, and that makes, you can make your silk screen and all of that. You use kind of a light to burn an image into a chemical that you put over the screen, and then you wash that portion away that wasn't burned, and
okay.
And then you've got a silk screen ready to go, and then buy some silk screen and ink and squeegee, and you're going to town, So
you should be selling some McGregor shirts.
I should be. It would be smart. Yeah, it'd be smart.
The next one, McGregor versus a rattlesnake.
Yeah, I don't know what he's going to do next. Well, go back to MMA, because either way, go back to MMA. There's nothing else to do with boxing. He would have done the top,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless he takes a second fight, that's another possibility. No matter who wins, especially if it's McGregor that wins, there could be a second fight, you know?
Yeah.
But this first one is just like crazy anyway. I don't think there's ever going to be anything bigger than this first one, you know, that I can foresee coming anyway. You never know who's going to come down the pike for fighting, you know, sports fighting superstars. But right now, like, what else could be bigger?
Well, it's definitely there. I don't know. Maybe Jeff Sessions became an MMA fighter. Maybe that's the next step. I don't know. Oh dear.
What they need to do is they need to start making politicians actually fight things out.
That's what they used to be sort of that one-on-one on the battlefield thing at one point, wasn't it? That's what Patton said anyway.
Yeah,
Patton solved World War II.
Those old generals were right down there. Yeah, they were, you know, and they could see each other, and they were, you know, at least they were in the battlefield. And sometimes having the battle, old Custer got his. Fucker.
True. You really feel. Oh, crazy. No, that's what Patton said. Patton always said that's how he wanted to. When Rommel was still around, he said that's how we'll resolve World War II. I'll get my tank, and he can get his tank, and we'll chase each other around the battlefield. Whoever wins the war. That's how he wanted to decide it. So. Craziness.
Yeah, but they were a big deal. Like, you know, you don't hear many other military officers. I guess like Ollie North became pretty notorious, and there's really not very many like high-ranking military officers that the general public knows, but they used to know. You know, who was commanding the militaries, you know.
Yeah. Well, Schwarzkopf is probably one of the last of the generals that people really. I mean, most people today, who are weren't alive during the Gulf War probably wouldn't know. But
right.
I remember growing up. I remember when Desert Storm happened. It was Storm and Norman, right? Like that was that same sort of fame and charisma as Patton or MacArthur or any of the rest of them, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
There's none of that build-up anymore. It's true. Petraeus sort of, kind of, but he got famous for another reason later on. So,
I think maybe it's just been so ongoing that it's just like lost media interest, maybe.
Well, yeah, there seems to be hero worship is a bit of a different thing, right? It's and. I was listening to it, and actually I thought about it, and it actually makes a lot of sense. There's no, like in the music world anyway, it's a pretty good example with things like YouTube and different things like that. There's no Michael Jacksons anymore, and there's no your Madonna even, right?
Right.
Like big star. I mean, Justin Bieber sort of, kind of, but not really. Like I would argue that he never even reached the heights even close to it. I mean, everybody kind of knew who he was, but the fame of it seems to be spread out a lot more even than it used to be. Like there's no super mega stars anymore, at least not in the music industry.
Yeah.
And that's the effect probably of things like this, right? Because this is where Justin Bieber came from.
Right.
He came from YouTube.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it is in a way like we're becoming our own entertainment too, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not really even interested. Like, I can't even watch TV anymore because it's so much acting and fakery and stuff that I don't want to look at it. I'd rather go watch something real, right?
What about things on Netflix and that sort of thing too?
I do watch some Netflix, but it's been a while since there was a good series that I really enjoyed. I think the last series that I really enjoyed on Netflix was Breaking Bad.
Okay.
And I don't know if Netflix even had that first or if it was Showtime or whatever, but I did watch that series. I've watched F is for Family the last couple of couple of seasons, but
Okay.
but yeah, I'm not that into it, and that's a cartoon anyway, so it doesn't really count. Like I don't have shows like TV shows that I'm getting into, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just been nothing, and even the like the reality TV type of stuff that I used to really enjoy, like, you know, the Survivor shows and stuff like that. Even they seem just too contrived now, and you know, compared to what the world is putting out there, you know, ourselves, right?
Yeah. I was never into the reality. I couldn't do it. Like when Survivor came out and that, I couldn't. I don't know why. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't get into the hype. It just made me mad. It made me angry. I don't know why.
I don't know. Survivor, I was a big fan of. I probably watched the first like 12 seasons or something. Never missed an episode of Survivor. But then probably the last 4 or 5 seasons, I don't even know what they're at right now. I'm not watching anymore.
Well, they've got to be up like 16, 17, because I remember I had just moved to Edmonton, and I think they were on season 1 or 2. That was 2001.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so it's got to be up there for sure.
Yeah, I watched it for a while. It started to be replaced because the idea behind it was the appealing thing more than what actually happened. It was, you know, the games and stuff that they played on there kind of brought me away from what I was interested. I was interested in the survival stuff, right?
Right.
And then
That's what I said. If they do Survivor in Antarctica, I might watch. Yeah.
Well, the dual survivors was really the best at that, as far as I'm concerned. Hey, like watching all the different Survivor shows. I don't know if you saw Dual Survival, but that was originally that was Cody Lundin and what's his name, Dave something, but they did about 2 seasons together, this duo, and basically they did throw themselves into places that were like crazy dangerous, and they'd have to find their way out of there, right? And Cody Lundin only goes barefoot, and it doesn't matter where they go. Like they're in Montana in the winter, and the guy's in like, you know, shorts with bare feet, and yeah, it was interesting. So Cody Lundin is kind of a I don't know, primitive survivalist, I guess you'd say.
Okay.
And then Dave Canterbury, that's the other guy. Dave Canterbury was portrayed as the kind of military special forces type survivalist, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But after their second season, or during their second season, somewhere along the way, season 2, it was learned that Dave's whole story about his military background was bullshit, and so they ended up kicking him off the show because of it, because of like the primary qualifications that they wanted. They wanted the primitivist and the militarist guy, right? He wasn't fitting that bill, and so they brought in a real special forces guy, and the show just sucked after that. Like,
you can have the showmanship, or you can have the reality.
well, that Dave Canterbury, he wasn't bad. He knew his shit, like survival wise, and he's got a really cool YouTube channel, like a really awesome YouTube channel, and it's constantly he's out there testing this stuff out, right? I mean, it's his whole passion. It wasn't like he was faking his whole, he faked the military thing, right?
Okay.
But his like position on survivalist technique really derives from there anyway, and he's good at it, you know. He's very good at it, and he's a character, you know. And the new guy that they brought in was just, the new guy they brought in was actually pretty stupid, like he didn't, you know, you could tell this guy, yeah, maybe he just trained in the military because he doesn't really know his shit, right? And the military doesn't really teach you hardcore survival, you know.
Right. So for this other guy, David, it was more of like an intuitive thing when you sang that, as opposed to
Well,
like
no, I
necessarily
think
learning skills.
he'd very much studied the art of survival, but
Okay.
and he leaned toward that kind of military survival technique, you
Yeah.
know, like he would he would go off on in some of those places that they went, he would just be constantly like cursing this fool for being barefoot in shorts, you know.
It does tend to go against sort of that idea of surviving anyway.
Yeah,
Something
yeah. You know, but then he swings the total opposite way, so he's got like heavy clothing and boots and all this stuff, right? Which can be cumbersome and I don't know. But yeah, if you want to see like the best reality survival show, I think that has been produced so far. Well, not necessarily that. I mean, Dual Survival is pretty good. Alone is another really good one. But the problem with Alone is that I think it's called Alone. They've got they're out there for such like basically they throw whatever 15 people out there or whatever. They give them each their own spot
right.
in this wilderness area, and they're out there till the last man, and they don't know what the others are doing,
Okay.
and they just got to survive for as long as they can, and they go like a year and shit sometimes, right?
Serious?
Yeah, they're out there, and that's the time factor is really what I found most attracting from the show itself. Like I think I could have got more into the show, except for the fact that you have these long stretches of time that are covered in an episode, and the things that are going on in that stretch of time, I don't know, like just the rhythm of the show, the time rhythm seemed off because you're dealing with too much of a stretch, and you miss some of the drama. Like it's hard to put stories to those kind of segments of time, right?
Falls in love with the squirrel. He comes across an old boot.
Yeah, but that's a hardcore survival show, and that one's still being made right now.
Sounds like
Yeah. No, that one's good, but it's hard for me to watch. I can't, like, I don't know, something about the time thing that if they actually followed them the whole year, I'd probably watch it. Like if the thing was in real time or close to it, I could.
I mean, the cameramen have to survive too, so.
Yeah, that's right. They got to be out there, but they could switch out guys. You could go in for 2 months and then come out for a month or whatever, or something like that.
Week on, week off kind of thing.
That could happen too. Yeah, they probably wouldn't go that hardcore to go out in for a couple of months, but that would bring a lot of expense to ship the guys every week if they're there for a year. Like that would add a lot
How much survival training did you do in the military?
Pretty little. Like I did way more survival training before I went in the military than I did in the military.
Okay.
Yeah. Military's my experience with the American military. I mean, unless your job calls for it, you might learn some more. But being in military intelligence and doing signals intelligence analysis, survival training is really small. Yeah, this is.
Well, where did you learn your survival techniques? Like, what did you do to train for that before you went in?
I kind of like studied survival guides and books and things like this. Like they didn't have, of course, YouTube and a lot of video even growing up and stuff. But then, like I think the kind of the biggest leap that I took was I got involved with the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, and they have a field station in Eastern Oregon that they use for all kinds of things. They bring groups out there from all the colleges around the Northwest and stuff. Will come and do different things out. Like if you're a geologist or whatever, you might do some field time at their field station and this kind of thing. And then they bring in school groups in the summer, or not even school groups, but groups of youths anywhere from like 10 to 18, but they got them broken up, and they do sometimes they'll do like 6 weeks that's just survival, just like primitive survival skills, and then they'll do 6 weeks that's going to be mountaineering and this kind of a thing. And so I got involved with them when I was maybe 15 or 14, where my parents signed me up for one of their tours, and we didn't go to the field station. We actually went all around the southwest United States to visit a lot of the Anasazi sites and to visit a lot of the current day pueblos and stuff.
Okay.
And so, but we were, roughing it all the way along. We just had a school bus, but you bring your own everything, tent and sleeping bag and food, and, you're totally, you're on your own as far as accommodations and stuff. We're just going to get to a campground somewhere, or some kind of BLM land where we can sleep on, And so we did kind of a tour for 6 weeks. But then I asked to work for them the following summer, and out at the field station, and they didn't get back to me. And then I ended up calling the director and asking him if I could come out there and work, and he says, "Well, we already got all of our summer staff and everything." And I was like, "I'll volunteer, I'll do whatever, right?" And he's like, "Well, our handyman might need some help, So I was like, "All right." So I shipped off to the desert for the summer, and I was gonna work, maintenance in their field station, and I did that for I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and then one of their instructors, I guess he like perved down on a little girl or something, so they sent him packing. Right? Yeah. They sent him packing. So then they were short an instructor, and so I took that position. And then it was basically like learn from the guys that knew more, right? And it was all real strong, like primitive skills and naturalists and these kind of things, right? So I got all kinds of experiences out there, but yeah, it was good times. And then I was preparing myself to go into special forces, so like I would go out and spend nights alone in the forest, just and just roughing it, right? Like nothing, no sleeping bags and that.
Good.
Well, we did try some mushrooms, but that was later. I was really a gung-ho, patriotic, but clean, healthy young man, going into the military, ready to really dedicate myself toward freeing the oppressed, and I ended up being the oppressor of the.
Then you had mushrooms.
Then I needed mushrooms.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
I was curious. You said you went to the Anasazi sites, did you?
Yeah.
That's cool. I love the American Southwest. I just love the landscape. I love sort of the energy of the place. Where all did you go? What all did you see?
Let's see. Gee, all of the major sites. So we went to like Canyon de Chelly, saw all of the ruins there. We went to Navajo National Monument. Saw all the stuff there. Mesa Verde. We went to a lot of little places that don't have huge ruins. I think the two coolest places I thought on the trip was Mesa Verde, and that whole canyon, that whole national park there, that canyon that goes through there. There's some really cool ruins that you can see on other sides of the canyon, that are not haven't been turned into these interpretive sites, right?
Right. Yeah.
That it was just killing me to look at those over there. Can't go visit them. But then toward the end of our tour, we were on the Navajo reservation, and there's I think it was Navajo National Monument land. There's a hike that you can go on to visit an unexcavated ruin. The ruin is called Keat Seal, which is, I think, talks about pottery shards. But there's a ranger that lives out there full time in a hogan below the ruin, and so you can hike out there. It takes a whole day to hike in, and then you'll go walk through the ruin with the ranger, and then you sleep overnight, not in the ruin, but out in the canyon, and then you hike back the next day. Right, so it's way out. And it's a deep canyon, so it's not a whole lot of us that were on the tour actually went to that. There was just a small group that were probably physically capable of actually doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine you have to be in pretty decent condition.
Yeah.
So what do you think happened?
I don't know why they left those cliffs and everything, but I do think that they were the ancestors of the Pueblo people, the current Pueblo people. Like I see the Pueblo structures as very close to, like they have a lot of the same features as the old Anasazi, especially like the ceremonial features, the kivas and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So that they got that direct connection. But why leave the cliffs and go to create open pueblos like that? I don't know. It could even be something, as simple as just like technology in the manner of mortaring and architecture and stuff like that, right? Like being under a cliff that's constantly like losing chunks and falling down is not a great place to be. For the long term, if you're creating a city, you're like, well, this year, is half the cliff going to fall on us and kill us all? Oh, let's hold on a minute. We could move out. We could actually move out onto the open mesa and build ourselves enough roof covering and stuff. We've kind of mastered this. We've made compartments. We know how to make roofs. Let's just move out there, and we don't have to worry about the canyon falling down on us.
You knew that 80% of the people are like, don't listen to that dude, he's talking shit.
Well, we don't want to be out there in the sun. It's hot. That's a hot place. I mean, that's one of the things, that's one of the benefits of the cliff, right? Under the cliff, it's shady. I mean, you must get like 20 degrees cooler sometimes. Yeah, exactly.
Then it's really shady.
Then it's pretty shady. Yeah. or you miss like a rung on the ladder breaks and you fall off a 50-foot cliff, right? So there's. Yeah, exactly. We could live up, wherever. We could build this stuff wherever we want. We're going to build it up on cliffs. Maybe it was a dangerous time. Maybe you had to have cliffs to keep people out, I don't know. We don't know the real history of what happened here.
Then it got turned into aliens.
Yeah, it probably was aliens. If we don't know the answer.
It's aliens?
It's either God or aliens.
There's water over there. Let's go over there. It's way easier, aliens.
Yeah. We could just live right by the water? What? Wait, what?
Hilarious. Hilarious. No, I'd love to go and actually take a look. It's always fascinated me. It's really course, there's always the mystery thing. I love the mystery thing with it. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you. I never got a chance to ask you since we've been talking. Incident Thinker did. There's been a lot of news stories coming out of sort of the mainstream media. Well, not media. Media's reporting on it, but out of mainstream academic journals about different things. Like, so the most famous looks like they found what they think are human remains next to mammoths outside of San Diego or San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
That date to about, they're thinking 130,000 years ago. And like it actually it made quite a splash in media. I don't know what's become of it. It was sort of earlier this spring that came out, and then all of a sudden there was a bunch of stories about there was some cave art or rocks or that sort of thing in Australia, and they now think that the history, so the indigenous history of Australia is about 20,000 years older than they had, and that was already old, right? Like it was about 30, 40,000 years or something like that. And now they're thinking it's 18,000 years, 20,000 years older. I wasn't sure if you'd seen any of that. I was meant to ask you about that.
I haven't been paying attention to any of that. In general, I just assume that it's older. Like I'm sold on the kind of the Blackfoot position through the stories that something happened, and all the a lot of the different species were changed, and the landscape was changed, and all the things that happen in Napi stories happened. Things changed, and it seems to suggest that it was because of human greeds and perversions and these kind of things. But then that could just be an anthropomorphization of the history of whatever happened. So I don't know one way or the other, but I think whatever came before that is lost time for us, or lost knowledge, lost history, right? So either we don't really know what came before, but I assume there were people in North America long before that, because pretty much everybody in North America has stories of the glacier period and of it being a transformative period. So everybody knew that something was different beforehand and changed during that time, and that's what all the trickster stories all over the place are relay. And everybody's got the flood stories, see, and it was a big flood, right? So
Graham Hancock and Brandon Carlson there. So
So I don't really try to figure out too much what happened before, because I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of more focused on where we're at now and what to do, ecologically here now, where we might just relive that whatever happened,
Yeah. That's true.
or set it up. Not you and I. We don't got any worries. There's not going to be 1,000 foot of ice in our neighborhood anytime soon. But
that's Edmonton in winter.
Edmonton is brutally cold. It is. It's way colder than Lethbridge. No wonder they got tunnels like the Viet Cong.
Wind makes it awfully cold sometimes down there. I don't know. So.
Oh yeah, the wind is bad, but we don't have to build those Viet Cong tunnels all over the city to move from. If you got to cross the street to that mall over there, you take a tunnel and stuff.
Yeah, that's why the train's all underground, right, up here. Yeah. It's starting to go. Climate change is causing a change in the way that they design the LRT. It's actually starting to come above ground now. So. Yeah. No, I thought it was interesting, those stories, because it's it's not the Eric Von Danikens of the world that are sort of coming up with this stuff. It's they're actually starting to find real, like the mainstream. They're actually starting to find actual sites where it's basically throwing the Clovis model and all that out on
Right.
right into the sewer. So no, I thought it was really interesting. And of course, a lot of people are saying, "Well, just wait and see," because we usually get these big stories, and then all of a sudden, something comes along and say, "Well, actually, it wasn't this; it was that." But
Yeah, but it's always like, all right, we had the excavation, then we woke up the next morning and there was a arrowhead in this place and didn't make sense, and so somebody either threw it off the whack or whatever. We got our actual, we sent it to one lab and their results were bogus. We sent it to another lab and it was it's 10,000 years old. Yeah, just as we'd always expected, right?
Yeah. No, and it's interesting, some of the explanations. I did a podcast back in 2014, actually, when they broke the story about they had done some marine archaeology in wasn't the Strait of Juan de Fuca, but it was up at the Queen Charlotte's, and they found what looked like a 14,000-year-old settlement underwater, because they found an old fishing weir and all that sort of thing, where there would have been a river at one point. And the archaeologist, I actually got to interview one of the archaeologists that was in charge of looking at the site with the side scan sonar and all that sort of thing. And even I kind of made fun of him, and so he got a little pissed off at me. But I kind of made fun of him because, a lot of this stuff could have got there by somebody coming along in a canoe, and it could have just fallen out of the canoe, and and then I don't remember how we started talking about it. We were talking about ancient aliens. We somehow got onto that. I think probably just because the TV series was big at that time or whatever, and I said, if anybody come up to you and said, ancient aliens were responsible, and he says, "Oh yeah, no, we get all those sorts of people." And then I said, "But maybe," he said, "yeah, but until I find an actual spacecraft, I'm not actually going to believe it." And I said something to the effect of, "Well, maybe somebody dropped one out of a canoe," and he got a little pissed off. He didn't really know how to deal with that. He wasn't quite sure what to think about that. But, it just goes to show that sometimes there's a lot of turf guarding with this sort of thing.
There is. My big frustration up here, other than the dating of the peopling of the Americas itself, all across Blackfoot territory, the archaeologists love to attribute sites to some culture from the Dakotas, the Knife River Flint culture, right? So there's a quarry of flint down in the Dakotas, and that's the only place you can get that particular kind of flint. And there's a lot of tools up here that are made out of that kind of flint.
Okay.
And so they don't assume that when they find that flint at a site that it's a Blackfoot site. They assume that it is from this Knife River Flint culture that moved through from South Dakota. And of course, Blackfoot people are like, yeah, like we can't trade for their rock that's better, to make knives and arrowheads and stuff out of,
That was the first thing I thought of, Why do you have to make it harder? Couldn't there just be a trade system?
I know.
Place?
Yeah, no. Yeah. But the archaeologists write it off in the way that, like, they explain it is they can only go by the evidence, right? So they can't say that there's any link to Blackfoot culture if it has Knife River Flint, because they know it comes from the Dakotas, right? And so all they can, and they're not saying actually that there was a people from the Dakotas that came through here either. That's not exactly what they're saying either. They're just saying that there was a Knife River Flint culture that was here that's not Blackfoot culture, at least that they're not, that they would concede. It's frustrating. Yeah, the best example of that happened was a site near Tabor, some years back, maybe 15 years back, where, like, that I saw anyway, where some of our students from Red Crow College were working with archaeology students from the University of Lethbridge, and they did an excavation out there of a buffalo kill site. And they brought elders in beforehand, and the elders looked at the landscape and told them before they ever stuck a spade in the ground how the site was used, and where the hunters would hide to ambush the bison in that wallow. And they went through the whole explanation of what happened there. And then they dug it up and they found out, yeah, that's exactly what how it happened, right? But there's Knife River Flint here, so this is Knife River Flint culture. So the Blackfoot elders told you what this was, right? But because it has a certain kind of rock, it's Knife River Flint culture. Yeah.
I just no. At some point, we're gonna have to get away with a little bit. Get away from this, just looking at the bare bones of
it's
in front of you, and actually listen to people and listen to intuitive knowledge that basically gives a different story, right? I mean,
well, it's like the thing with the Navajos and the Pueblos, right? And everybody's like, it's a mystery what happened, what became of the Anasazi, or not the Navajos and the Pueblos, but the Anasazi and the Pueblos. Like,
maybe they drowned in that canoe.
What became of the Anasazi? Well, their descendants are right there. They're right there, They got the same kind of architecture, they're just not under the cliff.
Angels.
That's different. It's not under a cliff. This one's under a cliff. This is the Anasazi culture. That's the Pueblo culture. Different. Yeah.
No, and you can't argue either. As soon as you argue, as soon as you say, you bring out a little bit of, that intuitive common sense. Oh, you're a pseudoscientist. You're a conspiracy theorist, or you're an ancient astronaut theorist, or whatever, right?
Right.
Whatever to throw around.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you're not, or just simply saying you're not under the canon, or in the canon. I remember when Wade Davis came to Lethbridge, I went to go see him talk. I don't know if you know Wade Davis, but
I know the name.
Yeah, he's a really famous, worldwide famous cultural anthropologist, and he's most famous for going down to Haiti and finding out the recipe to create zombies.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they made that Serpent in the Rainbow Hollywood flick after his thing. But he's done several different, kind of high-profile ethnobotany studies in different places of the world. And then the latter part of his career, he's been a National Geographic explorer. And so he was invited to the University of Lethbridge to do a talk. And I remember my supervisor for my master's thesis describing him as, well, he's not in the canon, meaning he's not a serious anthropologist, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, oh, you're so jealous,
Yeah.
You're so jealous of this guy just because he's actually made a name for himself.
Yeah.
And he's working for National Geographic instead of one of the journals of the Anthropological Society,
Yeah. It's interesting when you told me that story. You know what else that reminded me of? It's very similar. You know Reza Aslan?
No.
He became famous. He did a lot of studies in religion. He has a PhD. It's not in religious studies. It's like sociology of religion or something like that. But he became really famous because he got into a fight, I think it was Megyn Kelly on Fox. This is about 5 years ago, where because he's Muslim, so he wrote but he's a religious studies scholar. He's a sociology religion scholar, so he wrote a book. It was a really controversial book called Zealot, which is about the historical Jesus, and took a very different perspective on Jesus.
That's already hilarious. Just the title. One word is all he needed.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, they're trying to. Why would a Muslim write a book about Christianity? Well, I'm a religious, I'm a religious scholar. This is what I do for a living. Yeah, but why wouldn't you just combine yourself? Anyway, it went on and on and on. Why? And it blew up all over Facebook. It blew up all over social media at the time. But he became really famous, and he became CNN's go-to religious studies scholar. Anyway, this last year, I met him briefly last year. I went to a talk because he's really big on Islamophobia, and he was in Edmonton back about a year ago. And he was talking at the time, and it came out this year. He did CNN's doing some really interesting stuff. They're really kind of picking up where A&E left off. You know how A&E used to do some of those really interesting shows on all sorts of different topics.
Right.
But he hosted a show called Believer. Basically what it was, it was 6 episodes, and it's supposed to be only season 1, and he was supposed to do a season 2 later on, but he got kicked off of CNN because he hates Trump, and he started beating off of Trump, and so they say, well, we're not going to renew your show, so apparently he's looking for another venue to do it. But he did these shows, and yeah, it's a little, I'll admit, it's a little dramatized.
Right.
But what I found really interesting about it, so the 6 episodes that he did about it were, the first one was on the Agori, which, and he focused, he did sort of a whole show about the Agori in Hinduism, but he went to some of the more mainstream elements, but then he went into some of the really extreme elements where they eat, tissue from people's dead skulls, and
right.
They drink urine and whatever, some of the more extreme things. And then he did one on voodoo, and he did one on Scientology. He did one on a doomsday cult. There's a doomsday cult in Hawaii. And he went and lived with them for a while, and he actually, he did full-on interviews, and he got absolutely shit on by most of the academic establishment. I mean, I remember, as it was going on, I've got all the episodes. It's fantastic, Brian. It really is. It's really interesting, and I encourage anybody to go and watch it, because you can't look at it from the normal view, because people are sort of expecting, when you're dealing with some of the extreme stuff, in a sense, he's kind of normalizing it. He's saying, well, this is why it seems so weird, and this is what they're actually doing here. This is where it comes from, and this is what these people actually do, and exposing the general culture to some of the weird-ass, religious practices. He just got shit on by everybody, especially scholars of religion. They hate him. And a lot of the stuff that got thrown around about it was it's sort of contrived, like you were saying about reality TV. And yeah, a little bit it is. I mean, there's a little bit of the drama in there, whatever.
Right.
But if you look past it, if you actually look at what he was doing and you look past it, you actually start to see that it was a social stigma thing that he was actually starting to chip away at, and that's what a lot of people really had a hard time. Because, like Scientology, for instance, right?
Yeah.
He went into these breakaway Scientologists, and he sort of normalized their experience and said, no, let's not look at this with a predetermined, these people are crazy, right?
Right.
Let's find out what they actually believe and why.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that came to mind when you were talking about Wade Davis and I think that's what's needed. I think that sort of thing is actually what's needed in the discussion, because we're getting log jammed now by 10
Right.
There's just these mega wars going on in academia and outside of academia over that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, if people went back, like at least in anthropology and cultural anthropology, if people went to the basics, it's just like martial arts. Say you got your basic techniques and then you got your flowery shit that doesn't work.
Revisiting from a previous conversation.
In anthropology, it's like that as well. Some of the basic techniques that you're supposed to use are cultural relativity, which is exactly like you don't judge their culture going in as messed up, right? You don't judge it while you're there even. Because there's a related concept called historical specificity, where you know that whatever that they're doing right now, it could be a group of white supremacists. It could be whoever, right?
Yeah.
Whatever kind of, like, you know, the people that everybody thinks are the most evil in the world right now.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't matter. What they're doing right now, whatever that group is doing, their culture makes sense given its historical specificity, given the way it itself came about and was created and stuff. So people don't do things that don't make sense. They do.
Right.
The cultures make sense, but you have to open yourself up to understanding why, you know, they make sense.
Right.
And so that's the job of the ethnographer,
Well, you know,
to go in there and figure that out. And so in anthropology, another one of your basic techniques is called participant observation, meaning you're not just going to go and stand back in order to understand what the culture's like. You're going to actually participate in it. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they're like the basic techniques are really, really good, but people get away from that. It sounds like this guy, it sounds like he has like basic ethnography of these different religious groups, but it sounds like he does pick ones that, you know, or at least some ones that are not representative of the majority who would associate with that religion, right?
Right. And when he's breaking down sort of the us versus them sort of, you know, so I mean there is a little bit of a political whatever behind it, but he's doing it, I thought anyway, in a fairly honest way. And actually when you were talking about the white supremacist thing, there was another CNN show, I don't know if you saw it, called United Shades of America. Cameron Bell, and he's a comedian actually. He's not an academic, but he's black, so he's African American. And there's an episode where he goes to a Klan rally, and I haven't seen the full episode, but the trailer has these Klan members around this burning cross, and he's standing right there next to him.
Yeah.
Right next to them. Like, I mean, holy cow. Let's talk about a different way of approaching, you know, an interview on that. It's, it was really, really something. And I really appreciate that approach, right? Because there might be a little bit of a political bent to it, but to me, I think we're just so log jammed in terms of, you know, ideology.
Right.
These days, and I'm not talking about political ideology. I'm talking about societal ideology,
right?
You know, and academic ideology. That sort of thing. The reason it gets shit on so much is because it's actually blowing the dam up and letting the water flow the way that it should, right? And,
right.
You know, if we're all being honest and being open about everything. So, yeah, you should check it out. It's very cool. He went to reserves in the States as well. Like he did an episode about the history of reserves in the States.
Oh yeah.
How the United States has treated the First Nations there. He did the KKK one. He did Muslims in rural America. Awesome. It was fantastic. It really, really was. It was an awesome episode. United Shades of America. It's very good. And Believer with Reza Aslan. I have to say, I mean, I know CNN can be a little bit to listen to sometimes, just because they, you know, can be a little over the top.
Right.
They're actually doing some really cool stuff with these sorts of things. It's too bad they had such a weak backbone about the whole Believer thing. I don't think it was actually about the Trump comment. I I think it's because they were getting so much flack from the academics, the academic mainstream that really were pissed off that they gave Reza Aslan a voice to kind of go out and talk to a lot of these quote unquote fringe religions and that sort of thing. But it was amazing. It was very well done. I thought people shit on it though. It's hilarious. I sat back and listened, and not once did I actually hear a genuine academic reason why it was a bad show.
Right.
It was all emotion. It was all, it was all about, oh, it's so hyper dramatized.
Right.
Yeah, a little bit, but not really. I mean, there was even behind
that. You got to put it on TV. You got to make it entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
not that you got to tell lies or anything like that, but. There's some magic behind documentary too. Like I didn't appreciate it until last year. Last year, there's I think in 2018 we're gonna see on TV here a Wild Canadian Year on the CBC, I believe. But it's a 4-part documentary series about the wildlife in Canada. And they wanted to work with me on the prairie rattlesnakes, right? Okay, so I basically had to go recruit a rattlesnake actor to be in the documentary. What had happened originally, they got a hold of me a couple of years back, and they said that they wanted to film the prairie rattlesnakes as part of their fall. They have winter, spring, summer, fall. That's the 4 parts of the series, right? So they wanted me in the fall episode with a rattlesnake that was given birth. Well, they didn't want me in there. They didn't want me in the episode. They just want her, So they want a rattlesnake given birth, and I told them that's gonna be pretty difficult because we could, before the season starts, we could install a camera into a rookery. I know where there's rookeries where we could do that, where the female rattlesnakes go to have their babies, but you're not going to be able to go in there and mess with the camera at all during the season. So they decided that's not going to work, and then they found somebody with a laboratory with a pregnant prairie rattlesnake, and they mocked up an inside of a rookery, and they got the footage of her giving birth. But then they came to me last summer and they wanted footage to go along with it of the environment and snake moving through the environment and going into the hibernaculum and this kind of thing, right? And so I recruited a rattlesnake actor, and we went to the most picturesque local place where rattlesnakes live, which is the Box Canyon on the Blood Reserve, so we did some filming there, that I'm sure is going to be most of the landscape features stuff with the snake in the feature and moving through the landscape and this kind of thing. And then the latter part of the day we spent in Riverstone at an actual rattlesnake den, and got footage of the snake around the den and entering the den and this kind of a thing, right? So it kind of threw me off because I had always assumed, stupidly, watching nature documentaries, that these were just very patient people who go out and they film these things, right? Because they're in nature for a long time, and they wait it out and they get the good footage. I didn't realize that they hire local experts and they make it happen in a day or two. And they recruit basically animal actors and kind of more or less force them into the positions and find the best localities. And, it's all contrived, but it isn't. It's also, it's portraying something that's entirely real.
Right, yeah.
With the real players, but in order to make it happen in a way so that you can get it filmed, you make it happen, right? So... And you got to make it entertaining too. So, but it doesn't have to be fake, right? So it sounds to me like, I don't know, again, with the Wade Davis thing, the religious studies guys, the academics, they're probably pretty jealous that this guy's has such a big voice, that he's actually the one kind of educating the public about religious studies instead of them. And that's one of the things about academics that they really need to consider changing these days, because in the past, in the not too distant past, the academics were like the best-selling authors. Like, when Ruth Benedict printed Patterns of Culture, published Patterns of Culture, it was a bestseller. Like, everybody read that. And she was a hardcore, academic, right? And so, like, what's wrong with the academics today? Like, they've gotten, I guess their discourse has gotten so specialized that in order to talk about the things they want to talk about, they can only talk about at a high level that the general public can't understand, right?
Yeah.
But the important messages are in the kind of stuff like this guy's doing, right? I mean, I'm sure he's getting at the crux of what's come from their discipline, like Wade Davis is doing in anthropology, right?
Yeah.
But it's all being couched for the common person to be able to understand, right?
Well, that's a really interesting thing, Ryan. So with the Reza Aslan thing, like just looking at my Facebook, the people that were shitting all over him that I know, and I'm not going to say any names, but they tend to be the more snobby when it comes to academics, and academic institutions, and academic knowledge, right? And systems. That's the thing that I found. I mean, so a lot of people, the result of that is that a lot of people assume that means that people like Reza Aslan or whatever are cracks or cranks or quacks. But the reality is probably a lot closer to what you're saying. They're just jealous.
Yeah.
And they don't, they want their little enclave where only people that have studied that particular discipline in a particular way, it's a secret club.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to share with the general knowledge. It's because let's face it. The academic world has become the priests of the secular world, right?
Yeah.
So,
they're the priests, and they're very much the priests because they're not even part-time. They do it all the time. Hey, they're committed. Yeah. And that's where they go wrong. Hey, because that's where these guys who are getting, mainstream media on board to tell stories that are coming out of these disciplines, these guys are more flexible.
Right.
And so, that flexibility is going to win every time. It's going to win. And and it's not like they're lying.
No.
They're telling the secrets of the discipline, the things that people have learned, but they're telling it in a way that people can hopefully appreciate without having to know the language of that discipline so much,
Well, I suppose it really is an ancient thing, wasn't it? The Pythagoreans, if you revealed Pythagoras' theorem, you were put to death by the Pythagorean, right? So I suppose it's we don't do the hemlock or burning at the stake so much today. It's much more about a personality destroying than it is about the physical person destroying, right?
Right.
It tends to be how we murder people today for saying things we don't like. Hilarious. Anyway, I gotta run here, man.
Yeah, I'm about at the end of my free time too. Gotta go get my daughter from work.
Cool. Well, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no, this was cool. Should ad hoc it more often.
Yeah, no, and that's what that's what I'm hoping for too. I like it. It's more free flowing. So yeah.
Right on.
Well, all right. I'll let you go.
Coming around from my makeshift lectern here.
You need to put your t-shirt on the front of it so you've got your logo and
I should show you what I got as my lectern. Turn on light. Um, let's see. See if I can aim this camera down so you can see this thing. So it's basically a piece of fitness equipment with a board, and there's a weight vest draped over the front. But it's some kind of like one of those bullshit all-in-one gym things that they do everything in one. Yeah, I must have muted out. Yeah, so you can you can do everything on them, but but it's not the most efficient at anything, right? At anything, there's nothing. It's really not a good piece of equipment for like that I can think of for any one particular exercise. But if you just had to have one thing. Well, that's not even a thing for that either.
Bowflex will not be coming to you for sponsorship, Ryan.
Yeah, I know, hey?
All right.
Okay.
I'm gonna end here.
Yeah, there you go. I'm pushing that mute again. I shouldn't have my hands on this thing. All right. We'll see you. You too.